I think light metering is the essential part of the film photography experience. It's very important to figure out how to do it right. The film is expensive, you don't want to waste exposures. It's important to figure out how to get exactly what you want in a very few shots. So most of the old cameras don't have very reliable light meters anyway, so most people have to figure out the external solution for that. So depending on what camera you have, you might have light meter in it. The Nikon was producing film cameras up until like 2006, and the latest Nikon cameras, they actually have pretty advanced light meters, similar to the DSLRs that they produced later with spot metering and zone metering and whatnot. The other vintage cameras like this older Nikon, which is Nikon F3, has a light meter, but it's a very basic one. It has a very wide angle of measurement, so it gives you the reading of the overall frame, and if your scene is very high contrast, it's not very convenient to use that light meter. I use it mostly when I want to be very quick and I don't want to go for external light meter. Some cameras like this old Bronica 6x6 medium format have no light meter at all, so the only way is to use some external device. And your options are or a dedicated light meter device. This is the modern light meter produced right now by Riveni Labs, it's a Canadian company. The other light meters are old technology, they're not produced anymore. And the alternative is your phone. The dedicated light meters are actually pretty expensive devices. They can cost as much as a very good vintage film camera. So it's a reasonable question to ask, do you really need a dedicated light meter? When I started about a year ago to shoot film again, I started just with a phone, just downloaded a free application and used it for a while. But I always thought that if you want to be really serious about it, like you need to have a dedicated light meter device to be very precise and in control of everything. And my impression was that the phone metering is kind of a shortcut, you know, it's a very easy but imprecise way to measure your exposure. So I got a dedicated light meter device. It's a modern one by a Canadian company, Riveni Labs, which is pretty sophisticated, has some advanced features. And I use it several times, like this photo shoot on Maui. So from my shooting experience, I think there's a very small number of cases when a dedicated light meter actually makes sense. In the high contrast scenes like this photo shoot in Maui, shooting into the sunset against the sun, it's a very high contrast scene, and it's inconvenient, very hard with the phone to force it to give you the reading that you need. With a dedicated spot meter with a very narrow angle, it's much easier to read the shadows and highlights and actually choose the correct exposure in this tricky situation. But in 99.9% cases, the phone application is actually pretty convenient and precise. So metering with a phone, it's actually pretty simple. There are different applications. There are free applications. I got this one. This is a paid application, but the main advantage is that you can actually create a log record and you can save some notes that you want. I usually put like the actual exposure, shutter speed that I used, and I can save it and it saves as an image in my photographs, and I can review it later when I develop the film to see if I made a mistake during the decision making. But basically, you need to choose what do you prioritize for, aperture or shutter speed, ISO of the film, and then I just need to point it somewhere and it will give me the reading, for example in this case of the shutter speed, and that's it. I can save it as a log, and then I make a decision what actual shutter speed do I want to use. So even inside tricky conditions like this, I managed to make the right choice of the exposure using just the application of the phone. Here's a couple more examples. So in the conclusion, if you ask me, do I need a dedicated light meter? After a year of shooting film, different film stocks in different conditions and countries, I'd say you don't. In 2023, with the cameras and the phones and applications available, I think investing that money in a dedicated light meter is an overkill. Unless you're absolutely confident and sure that you see the need for it, but otherwise, I'd rather spend this money on a new vintage camera or investing in a vacation trip, some places where you can actually get opportunities to make better shots. So that's my personal opinion. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.